Swamiji Satchidananda of Ganapati of Mysuru, and he said just this thing: yoga is a philosophy. You do not have to be a Hindu. I am a Hindu because I grew up a Hindu. You may be a Catholic. You may be Jewish. You may be nothing at all and practice yoga and receive its benefits. Well done. You are not as unusual as you think.
Hey guys, it's time for another Emotional Algebra with Dr. E. Welcome back. We got a really cool show today. Interesting show as the universe seems to bring things to us. I will first bring Tara in now, and she's back.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Her and her busy life. She's got a lot of things going on in her life, so we fit her in between the raindrops when we can. Feel lucky to have you back, Tara.
I like that analogy. Thank you. I know everybody.
Absolutely. So when Tara and I talked about doing the show early on, and she talked about some of her pursuits, one of your favorite pursuits or things you like to work on and pursue is what, Tara?
Yoga. I love yoga. It was, without sounding dramatic, it kind of saved my life. So I went through a very dark phase in my life, and it really taught me so much discipline and mindset that I'm really excited for today's episode.
So how did yoga find you?
I think I was going through a very difficult divorce. Very, 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 very difficult. Like many other people out there, unfortunately, have experienced. And I think yoga was the one place I said, he's not allowed on my mat. And I really made that conscious decision of I give myself 15 minutes a day to have peace, to remember how to breathe. I realized it had been a very long time, weeks, months, since I took a deep breath. And it taught me that calming clarity. I regained my strength. I regained my purpose. I regained my focus. And those were all things that I needed throughout a very long duration of a legal battle and rebuilding my life. And it really brings you back to basics of you can breathe, you can steady yourself, you have focus. What are your goals? You need to have patience. And it kind of sounds ridiculous, but I think to people who understand yoga, they're like, oh, no, I get that, because you think it's easy, like it's just breathing and stretching. And it's seriously one of the hardest things mentally and physically that I've ever had to do. And a cool little side effect is I'm in the best shape of my life.
Excellent. Yeah, I put my back out once doing yoga.
You can get injured doing yoga. Like
I was doing one of those little side thing, bent, kind of where you have the arms out, and I went, oh, and I just had to stop, drop, and roll.
Over your head, yeah. Like
I'm sure our guest is going to say, then you're doing it wrong.
How you do it?
Yep. So again, the universe, you asked, the universe manifested. I had through a common friend, met Sharada, who was our guest. And I'll read her bio before we introduce her. It says, our guest today is a remarkable mentor and scholar who beautifully bridges the worlds of science and spirituality. And she really does. You're going to hear some really neat stuff we're going to talk about neuroscience and yoga. And she's going to talk about, I won't take that thunder from her. But today she leads a global mentorship platform and serves as the U.S. representative for the Global Yoga Institute for Peace and Prosperity. Pretty cool opportunity that she's been gifted with. Long before the titles and global mentorship platform, her path was defined by struggle and chronic pain. As a young dancer, she faced intense anxiety, depression, and a devastating physical injury that doctors told her would cause her permanent lifelong pain. Instead of accepting that diagnosis, she stepped onto a yoga mat, a choice that sparked a 4-decade journey of profound healing and rigorous study. She became a devoted disciple of Yogini Kali Ray, a TriYoga teacher, a passionate Gita chanter, and recently she earned her PhD in spiritual science. So who'd have thunk that there's basically a PhD in yoga? Pretty cool, pretty amazing stuff. So maps the intersection between where ancient Vedic wisdom meets modern neuroscience. She joins us today to share a powerful truth. True manifestation never comes from wishing for a better life while your nervous system remains trapped in survival mode. And that's something that you and I have talked a lot about here and there, Tara, too, and touched on the show, that just because people want good things to happen in their life doesn't mean that they can just bring them up and out. There's work that goes into that. It requires precise biological and energetic alignment, as well as some good emotional algebra, too. Here to teach us how to unlearn the old frequency of struggle and step into our power as conscious beings is the brilliant Sharada Devi. And
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Dr. E, for inviting me. And Tara, it's lovely to meet you. And I hope we're going to have some electrifying conversations about the neuroscience of yoga.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you could join us. And again, that how this fell into place with Tara asking for it and you stepping in the path and being willing to be here, and great history. I really do want to hear more about your history that brought you to yoga, especially the issues with chronic pain that you've had. And because I know so many people experience pain that they're told by so many physicians that this is just the way of your life, and it doesn't have to be that way at all.
Not at all. And before we get too far, because this is part of the story, my name is a little bit tricky, and I help everyone with it because when you say Sharada, that turns on your parasympathetic nervous system and calms the whole thing down. So I'll let you enjoy a Sharada.
Sharada.
And it's very tricky. We don't pronounce Sanskrit names the way we pronounce English names.
Gotcha.
And that's not the name I started with. The name I started with was a very conventional English name, but as I walked the path of yoga and healed my life, another name decided it wanted to be mine, and that's how I got here. You know, I started off like many folks. I was living in a small town, going to public school, having a very ordinary life, except I come from a family of folks who struggle with anxiety and depression. And the anxiety started when I was a little kid. I was a very anxious little kid. And then as I got older, into my teenage years, that's when depression got woven into the mix. And of course, there's stories of trauma. And it's interesting, some of the traumas are big traumas. And some of them are the littlest things that you wouldn't think would traumatize someone, like having a friend when you are 4 tell you they don't want to play with you. That to a 4-year-old is huge. And then as you start to get into the big world and you see the inequities all around you, that weighs into the mix. So I'm already not having a strong, happy, healthy experience. And then when I was 21, I injured my hip badly, warming up for a dance class. There was a sound that came out of my body when I did that overstretch that I can't really describe. It was unusual. And I limped away, and I limped around for 3 years, in and out of orthopedic offices, chiropractors, every kind of physician that you can imagine. And then at 24, I was sitting in a physician's office, and he had met me for the first and last time. He looked at me and said, I don't have any idea what's actually wrong with your hip. And I don't have anything to offer you to change that. But I will tell you this. When you're older, you'll have osteoarthritis in your hips. I was horrified. I was scared out of my skin. That was a death sentence for a 24-year-old dancer.
Yeah.
And all I knew when I left that office was I was not going to do that.
Right.
And in truth, I now realize that doctor was a wise, wise physician. And he told me very clearly what was going to be the outcome of the path I was following. And fortunately for me, I heard him and I didn't take that path any longer. I got on a yoga mat a few months after that. And luckily for me, I landed in the tutelage of a true yoga master. Yogini Kaliji received the TriYoga practice through her own experience. And that practice started the whole healing journey. And now I've got a whole lot of good that I get to do for the world. And I feel better than I felt when I was in my 20s. And I'm definitely stronger and more flexible. So there's my story.
Excellent. Excellent. So tell us then a little bit about when you went through that journey, the changing of your attitudes, your belief systems. What was that like to really absorb the yogic philosophy into your life? I know that you had to go through, before you were accepted into the doctoral program, you and I talked and said you had to do a couple years of dietary change and lifestyle changes.
Yeah. It was more than a couple of years of a lifestyle change. The yoga lifestyle has many limbs to it. That's why it's called an 8-limb practice. And it does involve how you live your daily life. Simple things like, do you get enough sleep? Do you get enough exercise? What you eat is a huge part of the lifestyle, because truly that food starts everything off in the life and the body. And the ethical principles help us make choices for how to live our lifestyle. And truthfully, I developed this yogini lifestyle over 4 decades of practice, one step at a time. I didn't step on the yoga mat and get all straightened out. It was a little bit more of a process like that. The first thing I did was change my diet. I began eating a non-violent diet. We are plant-based yoginis here and TriYoga. And then I began working on my emotions and my thoughts, because those were where the real power for transformation were, in the way I saw the world.
And I can follow up on that. You know, yoga really was a bridge for me to get into spirituality work. And I'm a Catholic that practices Kabbalah, and I'm not sure how many of me in the wild there are. But it really was an interesting and intriguing journey to go through that. And when you said about the doctor that he told you, this is what is going to happen to you, I'm a firm believer that people say things to us in our life to then channel us to move in one direction or another. And I love that you saw that as, no, that's actually not the path I'm going to take. I'm going to take this path. And I would love for you to really speak about the spirituality part of it, because yoga really was that bridge for me. And now everything I do, I see as a blessing. Meaning, if something bad happens to me, there is no bad. That is a signal for me to inspire change. I'm going down the wrong path. And it almost sounds hokey to people to say, what do you mean there's no bad? But if you truly frame it as whatever life is giving you is an opportunity for you to respond properly, I would really love for you to expand upon that, because I'm trying to teach that to my children.
Yeah. And that really gets back to the two ethical limbs of yoga that are not often talked about. And in truth, there's nothing particularly Hindu or yogic about these ethical principles. They're just good ways of living. And it is not uncommon at all for you to be a Catholic and to practice Kabbalah and yoga. My background is in the study of all religions. And when I was in Mysuru studying in graduate school and doing my research work, my father guru, I am very blessed. I have a mother guru, Kali Ray, and a father guru, Swamiji Satchidananda of Ganapati of Mysuru. And he said just this thing: yoga is a philosophy. You do not have to be a Hindu. I am a Hindu because I grew up a Hindu. You may be a Catholic. You may be Jewish. You may be nothing at all and practice yoga and receive its benefits. Well done. You are not as unusual as you think.
Well, as far as moving into that spirituality, how important is it let's talk manifestation. I think a lot of people want to know that. How important is it to have the spiritual part along with the yoga in order to truly make a difference in your life? If you're saying, so many people, I want to manifest wealth, I want to manifest health, I want to manifest my soulmate. Speak about the correlation between those two, because I have really found in my life, when I dig into that and I now understand the neuroplasticity that goes behind it, I understand the science, I understand the spirituality, I have seen remarkable positive changes in my life. So I would love for you to expand upon that.
Well, manifestation is how I also use my yoga practice extensively. And if you have been playing in the manifestation world at all, you know it's about how you feel. It's about your frequency, and we know our frequency by our feelings. When you feel good, your frequency is high, and when your frequency is low, it feels that way. And when we are calling in a heart's desire, a relationship, when we are calling in our abundance, we are working with the energy of our nervous system. And Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is one of the first textbooks on the nervous system. The ethical principles, the Yamas, the Niyamas, the social restraints, the Niyamas, the personal disciplines and practices are there to help you build a strong, healthy nervous system. And that is a strong, healthy view of the world. And it's that view of the world that we use to transform our frequency. If I look out the world and it feels awful, and I feel awful with it, well, guess what? My frequency is here. It's going to be hard for me to call in that abundance. When I look out at the world and it feels good, then my mind lights up. And I have all these ideas for how prosperity can come to me in a multitude of expected and unexpected ways.
It really is that old adage of like, your thoughts create your reality.
Yeah, your thoughts do. And that really starts at the feeling level in the nervous system. I have a snappy thing I say about thoughts and feelings. Thoughts are feelings in words. Feelings are thoughts without words. We have a physical sensation, it goes to our brain and we go, oh my, I'm hungry. We decided sometime long ago that physical sensation meant I was hungry. We have a feeling of butterflies in our stomach. And that bubbles up and I feel excited. We can lift our frequency by paying attention to the way we feel. And we can change the way we feel by by changing the thoughts that we think. If I look out there and the world is harsh and scary, then I'm not going to feel good. And my thoughts are going to get scarier and harsher. If I let awe and wonder bubble up and I look out at the world, it looks sparkly and exciting and new, and I want to get out there and play. And that's how the manifestation game works in this yogini's world.
And I think that also what we want to look at is that idea of fragmented energy, and that emotions are there to teach us things, tell us things, show us things, do things for us. And when we don't see a purpose for those emotions and we try to keep them fragmented, that's where they stay stuck. And I think a lot of times when people might be hearing this conversation, they feel like, well, if I just change my attitude, my life is going to get better. And no, it's a lot more than just thinking that if I think things, then it will change. It's we want to work on changing the underlying issues and ease those disruptions of those emotions that are out of sync. So one of the things you're able to do through yoga was to look at those emotions over time, embrace what those emotions were trying to do. They were stuck in your body. They were stuck in perceived traumas. You move them through and move them out through practices then of finding peace over 4 decades, and then working through this. You've been able to work on that manifestation. So that's where a lot of people, I think, lose faith in the idea of the secret and manifestation. They said, well, there's a Zen cone that says you smile, the world changes. That's only part of it. So even with this, it's not just about thinking that, well, I thought this and I can think better, so I feel better. Thoughts and emotions to me are different. It's that when we're born with our emotions. And then as we develop words, then we add words to those emotions, and how those emotions are interpreted are through the societal lens, our lens of temperament, our lens of family, our lens of just how what life has brought to us, or what we feel like happened to us.
Yeah.
And really it's all happening for us. So I think in this, if we look at the world as full of abundance, then even when you feel like bad things are happening to you, they're happening for you. And that's where you found, Sharada, that when your hip went out and somebody challenged you to say, this is this trajectory your life is going to take, like Tara said, and you said, no, I'm going to take a different trajectory. Thank you. Before grad school, I had a professor at Ohio State in undergrad say, you'll never get into grad school. And I said, expletive, no, thank you.
Yes.
And when Tara was in her marriage and she wanted to have a better life, she said, no, thank you. And in that, for each of us and all of us, instead of looking at the things that feel painful as being bad and wrong, remember to look at them as gifts from the universe to say, there is different, there is better, there is learning, there is embracing, there is growth. And through that is where, to me, we find that true wisdom.
Yes.
So I hope you didn't feel like because I know we talked before, and that's kind of where I really wanted to bring these pieces together in this idea of how we truly grow and through this. Because yoga and even what we're doing, what we're talking about, really comes together because of that, the inner tie-in of the effects of emotion on neurophysiology.
Yes.
The effects of yoga on neurophysiology and movement on neurophysiology. And it all does come together as we understand the value of finding what that love is woven through every emotion and every experience, not just the ones we like.
No. And, the yoga principles, the asana, I think, has been so popular around the globe. And that's really what globally yoga has become, the physical practice. We balance so many things in our nervous system. We work out and balance so many emotions and thoughts by moving our body in a healthy way. And that's what yoga can offer us. It moves out a lot of that nervous system chatter, they call it. The most famous sutra from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It's the whole sutra. Yoga is stopping the fluctuations of your mind. And that you're going to need a healthy body for. And that's going to come from the asana practice and the breathing. And you're going to need a healthy mind. And that comes from the focus and the concentration. And these are the first 3 limbs of yoga. There are 8. And in those limbs are the yamas and the niyamas, the things that you want to do to be in a healthy relationship with your society and a healthy relationship with you.
So let's go to that. Do you have a couple slides here? Let's go to that slide and go ahead and have you tell us about these.
So most everyone is familiar with yoga. It is physical practice to make you stronger and more flexible. And yes, it is. But first and foremost, it's a set of ethical principles that help you then move into a healthy life. The yamas are the things that you do that are guidelines for how you live with other people. And that is where we get into things like nonviolence. Then we have the niyamas. These are things you do to live in an ethical relationship with yourself. And that's where we get into things like santosha and being peaceful and at ease in your life and satisfied. Then we have asana practice to give us a strong, healthy body. Then you move into pranayama, which is about expanding your life force by expanding your breath. Then we go into pratyahara and dharana, which are deepening stages of focusing and discipline and training your mind to look at the abundance that is all around you instead of looking at the things that you think aren't good enough yet. And then we move into dhyana, which is the intense meditation that focuses the mind internally. And then from there, if you would like, you may expand your consciousness to beyond your wildest imagining in a state of samadhi. And that's the yoga practice. The yamas and the niyamas are where we really get into the neuroscience of it.
And, I do think it's interesting to note that if someone has never done yoga before and you are carrying a lot of trauma, pain, insecurity, whatever those emotions are that stay trapped. I remember my first time or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 on the mat, the amount of emotion that came out of me was visceral. And it was so liberating and freeing. And I really do want people to understand if they do feel stuck, if they feel like I've tried everything, I urge you to get on a mat and stretch. They say so much emotion is in hips. And it was just incredible just getting on there and stretching and breathing and letting go. And the amount of energy that comes out of you, quote unquote, negative, is really a beautiful release.
Yes. And if we think about the nervous system, it's an electrical system. There's a lot of energy moving through there all the time. And your thoughts and your habits of moving are just little programs in there. And when you start moving the body, you're going to start turning on those little programs. And some of them feel great and you want to do more. And some of them you're willing to let go of. And that is where your breath helps so much. But yeah, all of it's programmed in the nervous system. All our thoughts, all our feelings are just little patterns of neural activity in there. And when we move our body differently, we change those patterns.
Hey viewers, our episode ran a little long, so we decided to split into 2 episodes. So stay tuned for the next episode to pick up where we left off. And until next time.
I used to chase signs like they chase me back. And the seeds of change need soil and an honest crack. So I breathe open to my fears, let them rise, embraced with love. What I feed in my heart, so as below